Fidel Castro, known to supporters as El Comandante, ruled Cuba from 1959 to 2008, transforming the island into the Western Hemisphere's first communist state. Born August 13, 1926, in Biran, Cuba, Castro's rise to power after overthrowing dictator Fulgencio Batista placed him at the epicenter of Cold War tensions. Washington saw him as a dangerous ally of the Soviet Union, just 90 miles from Florida, and the CIA made eliminating him a priority. Between the early 1960s and the late 1980s, Castro is estimated to have survived an astonishing 638 assassination attempts, earning him a place in the Guinness World Records. The plots ranged from deadly serious to almost absurd. There were plans to poison his favorite cigars, slip toxins into his diving suit, dust his boots with chemicals to make his beard fall out, and even plant explosives in seashells at his favorite diving spot. Most were orchestrated by the CIA, often in partnership with Cuban exiles, and some were timed during major diplomatic events to destabilize his regime. Yet Castro's survival was not mere luck. He was famously unpredictable, changing routines, using decoys, and surrounding himself with fiercely loyal bodyguards. These near-constant threats only deepened his image as the defiant revolutionary who could not be killed. By the time he stepped down in 2008, Fidel Castro had not only outlasted every US president who tried to remove him, but also turned his survival into a powerful symbol of resistance, cementing his place as one of history's most enduring and controversial leaders. Ahmed Zogu, better known as Zog Bamor, was the self-proclaimed king of Albania, ruling from 1928 to 1939. Born on October 8, 1895 in Burgajet, Zogu rose from tribal chieftain to prime minister and eventually crowned himself monarch, styling himself as a modernizer in a deeply fractured Balkan state. His reign came during a turbulent era, between the collapse of the Ottoman Empire and the rise of fascist Italy, when Albania was plagued by political rivalries, clan feuds, and foreign meddling. Zog's rule was marked by a mix of modernization efforts and authoritarian control, but it also earned him powerful enemies at home and abroad. Nationalists accused him of selling out to foreign interests, while rival clans nursed old vendettas. Over the course of his reign, Zog survived more than 55 assassination attempts, an extraordinary figure for any head of state. These ranged from poisoned food and sniper attacks to armed ambushes. One of the most infamous incidents came in 1931, when Zog was leaving the Vienna State Opera and gunmen opened fire. Rather than flee, the king reportedly drew his own pistol and shot back, wounding one attacker before escaping unharmed. The constant threat of death shaped his leadership style. Zog traveled with a heavy armed guard, rarely trusted those outside his inner circle, and lived in a near-permanent state of vigilance. Yet his survival against such odds became part of his legend, turning him into a symbol of Balkan resilience, though critics called it a testament to Albania's instability. By the time Italy invaded in April 1939, forcing him into exile, Zog had not only outlasted decades of intrigue, but also etched his name into history as one of the most targeted leaders of the 20th century. His story remains a reminder of how power in turbulent times often comes with a target on one's back. Adolf Hitler, the self-proclaimed Führer of Nazi Germany, ruled from 1933 until his death in 1945, casting a shadow over Europe during the Second World War. Known for his iron grip on the German state and his aggressive expansionist policies, Hitler became one of the most heavily guarded men in history. Yet, despite the Gestapo's watchful eye, he survived at least 42 documented assassination attempts. From lone wolves to high-ranking conspirators, enemies sought to end his reign before his vision of a 1,000-year Reich could unfold. One of the most infamous plots came on July 20th, 1944. Inside the Wolf's Lair, Hitler's heavily fortified East Prussian headquarters, Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg planted a briefcase packed with explosives near the Führer during a military briefing. The blast tore through the conference room, killing 4 and injuring many, but Hitler escaped with minor wounds, shielded by the thick oak table. This was just one in a string of close calls, a would-be bomber disguised as a carpenter, an armed assassin waiting along a parade route, and even a planned poisoning of his food supply. Each failed attempt only tightened Hitler's paranoia. Security around him became almost impenetrable, with loyal guards, food tasters, and constant location changes. Yet the persistence of these plots revealed the depth of resistance, even within his own military ranks. In the end, Hitler did not fall to an assassin's bullet or bomb, but to his own hand in a Berlin bunker on April 30, 1945. The failed attempts against him remain a testament to how many risked everything to stop him, and how fate, timing, and chance shaped the course of history. By the way, I'd like to know where you're watching from. If you find these stories interesting, please leave a comment right now, letting me know where you're watching from. I'd love to say hello to you in the comments. Charles de Gaulle, known as Le Général, led France through some of its darkest and most defining moments. Born on November 22, 1890, in Lille, he rose from a decorated World War I officer to the leader of the Free French forces during World War II and later served as president from 1959 to 1969. His vision was clear: restore France's grandeur, even if it meant making controversial choices. But his decision in the early 1960s to grant Algeria independence after a brutal 8-year war ignited fury among hardline factions, especially within the French military and the paramilitary OAS, the secret army organization. That fury translated into action: 31 assassination attempts over the course of his presidency. These ranged from sniper ambushes to elaborate bomb plots, each more desperate than the last. The most infamous came on August 22, 1962, in the Paris suburb of Petit-Clamart. As de Gaulle's Citroën sped through the streets, OAS gunmen unleashed a hail of bullets. The car was riddled with holes, but de Gaulle, unscathed, later remarked that France itself had been the true target. Surviving so many attempts cemented his image as a man of almost mythical resilience. It also hardened his resolve, convincing him to push forward with policies that reshaped France's role on the world stage: independent, defiant, and unwilling to bow to pressure. In the end, Charles de Gaulle not only outlived his would-be assassins, he outlasted their cause, leaving behind a France transformed. Yasser Arafat, known to his supporters as Abu Ammar, was the longtime leader of the Palestine Liberation Organization and the Palestinian National Authority, a figure whose life spanned some of the most turbulent decades in Middle Eastern history. Born in Cairo on August 24, 1929, Arafat rose to prominence in the 1960s as the face of the Palestinian nationalist movement, operating from shifting bases in Jordan, Lebanon, and later the Palestinian territories. His political career was defined by armed struggle, high-stakes diplomacy, and constant danger. Over the years, Arafat became a target not only for Israel, which viewed him as the orchestrator of deadly attacks, but also for rival Palestinian factions who saw his leadership as either too militant or too compromising. Between the 1970s and the early 2000s, he reportedly survived around 13 assassination attempts. These ranged from Israeli military strikes on his headquarters in Beirut during the 1982 Lebanon War, to planned ambushes by internal rivals, to targeted bombings of aircraft and convoys he was scheduled to use. Several times Israeli jets bombed buildings he was in, only for him to walk away, shaken but alive. Even within Palestinian politics, disputes over direction and control occasionally turned violent, adding another layer to the threats he faced. Arafat's repeated survival turned him into a symbol. For supporters, a resilient leader protected by fate. For opponents, an elusive figure whose removal proved nearly impossible. Each failed attempt only reinforced his political myth, enabling him to remain at the center of Palestinian politics for decades. His life, marked by survival against overwhelming odds, underscored the volatility of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the extraordinary personal risks taken by those at its heart. Queen Victoria, known as the Grandmother of Europe, reigned over the British Empire from 1837 until she died in 1901, guiding the nation through industrial transformation, global expansion, and profound political change. Yet, behind the image of regal stability, her life was marked by danger. Throughout her 63-year reign, she survived at least 8 assassination attempts, more than any other British monarch. The threats began early. In 1840, just months after marrying Prince Albert, a 17-year-old gunman, Edward Oxford, fired 2 pistols at her carriage in London. Both misfired. In 1842, John Francis tried twice in 2 days to shoot her as she rode through the city. Only weeks later, another assailant, John William Bean, aimed a pistol loaded with paper and tobacco at her, intending to shock rather than kill. The pattern repeated through the decades. In 1849, an unemployed bricklayer struck her with a cane as she rode in Hyde Park. In 1872, Arthur O'Connor forced his way toward her carriage with a pistol before being overpowered by her Scottish servant John Brown. And in 1882, a disgruntled poet fired at her in Windsor. Each attempt, though foiled, underscored the volatile political climate of 19th-century Britain, a period marked by economic unrest, Irish nationalist movements, and the growing visibility of the monarchy. Remarkably, Victoria's resolve never faltered. She refused to retreat from public life, insisting on appearing in open carriages and walking among her subjects. By the time she died in 1901, Queen Victoria had not only become a symbol of imperial endurance, but also a living testament to personal courage in the face of repeated threats. Her survival through so many attempts solidified her as a monarch whose reign was as much about resilience as it was about empire. By the way, I'm going to be posting a lot more interesting videos on the channel. I'll greatly appreciate it if you could show support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Thank you very much. Alexander II of Russia, known as the Tsar Liberator, ruled from 1855 until his death in 1881, steering the vast Russian Empire through turbulent change. Born on April 29, 1818 in Moscow, he is remembered for emancipating over 23 million serfs in 1861, a bold reform that earned him both admiration and deadly enemies. His reign was marked by modernization efforts, expansion of railways, and cautious moves toward limited self-government, all of which stirred fierce resistance among revolutionaries and radicals. Throughout his rule, Alexander II survived at least 6 assassination attempts. In 1866, a young revolutionary named Dmitry Karakozov fired at him in St. Petersburg, missing only because a bystander deflected his aim. In 1879, members of the radical group Narodnaya Volya tried to derail his train with explosives. Later that year, a gunman attacked him on the streets, narrowly failing to hit his target. In 1880, a bomb hidden beneath the Winter Palace dining room exploded, killing and injuring dozens, but Alexander had been late to dinner. Each attack pushed the Tsar into tightening security, yet he refused to retreat entirely from public life. But on March 13, 1881, his luck ran out. As his carriage passed along the Catherine Canal in St. Petersburg, the first bomb thrown at him wounded several guards. When Alexander stepped from his carriage to check on them, a second bomb struck, fatally injuring him. His assassination ended one of Russia's most transformative reigns, halting his planned move toward a constitution. The wave of violence that claimed him underscored the peril faced by reformers in a divided empire, and cemented Alexander II's legacy as both a visionary and a victim of the forces he sought to change. Abraham Lincoln, often called the Great Emancipator, served as the 16th President of the United States from March 4, 1861, until his death on April 15, 1865. Leading the nation through the Civil War from the White House in Washington, D.C., Lincoln became a symbol of unity and change, but also a target for those who opposed his vision. His presidency was marked not only by the abolition of slavery, but by constant threats to his life, with records showing multiple foiled plots, at least 5 assassination attempts before the one that succeeded. As early as his journey to the Capitol in February 1861, Lincoln narrowly escaped an assassination attempt in Baltimore, later known as the Baltimore Plot, where conspirators allegedly planned to stab him during a train transfer. Throughout his presidency, reports of menacing letters, suspicious individuals near his residence, and uncovered schemes kept the atmosphere tense. In 1864, his own guard discovered a sniper lying in wait near the soldier's home, where Lincoln often stayed. These threats came from Confederate sympathizers, political extremists, and those who feared his policies would forever alter America's social fabric. Despite these warnings, Lincoln refused to live in constant fear, often traveling without heavy security. But on the night of April 14, 1865, at Ford's Theater, John Wilkes Booth, a Confederate loyalist, slipped past the lax guard detail and shot the president, ending a life that had already evaded death more than once. The impact was profound. Lincoln's assassination shocked the nation, deepened post-war divisions, and forever linked his legacy to the price of leadership in a fractured America. His survival through earlier attempts only magnified the tragedy, showing that even the most vigilant leader cannot escape the determination of a committed assassin. Muammar Gaddafi, known to his supporters as the brotherly leader, ruled Libya from 1969 to 2011, a reign that spanned over 4 decades and transformed the oil-rich nation into both a political powerhouse and a target of relentless hostility. Born on June 7, 1942, in a Bedouin tent near Sirte, Gaddafi rose from a military officer to seize power in a bloodless coup at just 27 years old, overthrowing King Idris III. His rule blended Arab nationalism, socialism, and an iron grip on dissent, placing him at the center of global controversies. From the mid-1970s onward, Gaddafi's Libya faced growing tensions with the West, accused of sponsoring terrorism and destabilizing neighbors. These political storms translated into repeated attempts on his life by both foreign intelligence agencies and internal rivals. Estimates suggest Gaddafi survived more than a dozen assassination attempts, though public records show it was just about 5 attempts, the most infamous being the 1986 U.S. airstrike on Tripoli and Benghazi, ordered by President Ronald Reagan in retaliation for the Berlin discotheque bombing. Gaddafi narrowly escaped that night, though his adopted daughter was killed. Other plots ranged from military coup attempts to infiltration by Libyan dissidents, some foiled at the very gates of his palaces. These repeated brushes with death only reinforced Gaddafi's paranoia, reshaping his leadership style. He became obsessed with security, sleeping in different locations each night, and often staying in Bedouin tents guarded by heavily armed convoys. Yet, his survival streak fueled his image among supporters as a defiant figure who could outwit superpowers and enemies alike. That perception lasted until 2011, when an armed uprising during the Arab Spring, backed by NATO intervention, ended his 4-decade rule and ultimately his life in Sirte. Joseph Stalin, born on December 18, 1878, rose from revolutionary street fighter to the unchallenged leader of the Soviet Union from the mid-1920s until his death in 1953. Known as Koba in his early years and later as the Man of Steel, Stalin's rule was marked by rapid industrialization, brutal purges, and absolute political control. His iron grip over the USSR made him one of the most feared and targeted leaders of the 20th century. Throughout his reign, Stalin reportedly survived 4 assassination attempts. Plots emerged from all directions: disillusioned revolutionaries, political rivals within the Communist Party, and foreign intelligence agencies during World War II. One of the most notable was Operation Zeppelin in 1944, a Nazi plan to parachute agents into Moscow to kill him, foiled before it even began. Earlier, in the 1930s, Soviet security services uncovered conspiracies among party officials and military officers, some of whom planned to ambush him during his travels. Even members of exiled White Russian groups attempted to assassinate him, seeing his death as the key to collapsing the Soviet state. These repeated threats only deepened Stalin's paranoia, fueling the infamous Great Purge of 1936 to 1938, during which thousands were executed or imprisoned on suspicion of disloyalty. While his survival cemented his image as an untouchable figure, it also entrenched a climate of fear that defined Soviet life for decades. By the time of his death on March 5, 1953, Stalin had not only outlived his would-be assassins, he had reshaped an entire nation around the belief that he was both indispensable and indestructible. Donald Trump, the 45th President of the United States, served from January 20, 2017, to January 20, 2021, and remains one of the most polarizing figures in modern American politics. Born June 14, 1946, in Queens, New York, Trump entered politics as a billionaire businessman and reality TV personality, reshaping the Republican Party with his unconventional style, nationalist platform, and unfiltered rhetoric. His rise to power, coupled with his ability to stir both fervent loyalty and intense opposition, placed him under extraordinary security scrutiny. Trump has faced numerous assassination attempts and credible threats throughout his political career. Reportedly, over 8 attempts. On March 12, 2016, during a rally in Dayton, Ohio, a man tried to rush the stage before being subdued by the Secret Service. Just 3 months later, on June 18, 2016, 20-year-old Michael Sanford attempted to grab a police officer's gun at a Las Vegas rally, later admitting he planned to shoot Trump. On November 5, 2016, at a rally in Reno, Nevada, Secret Service agents rushed Trump off stage after someone in the crowd shouted, "Gun," though no weapon was found. The threats continued into his presidency. In September 2017, a man in Mandan, North Dakota, tried to ram Trump's motorcade with a stolen forklift. In October 2018, and again in September 2020, ricin-laced letters addressed to Trump were intercepted before reaching him, the latter traced to a Canadian woman who was later sentenced to prison. The most serious attack came on July 13, 2024, during a campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. A gunman opened fire, grazing Trump's ear and killing one attendee before Secret Service snipers neutralized the shooter. Just 2 months later, in September 2024, an armed man was arrested near Trump's Florida golf club, prompting speculation about another assassination plot. These incidents, spanning rallies, the White House, and public events, illustrate the heightened risks faced by modern U.S. presidents, especially those as polarizing as Trump. For his supporters, surviving these attempts reinforces his image as a defiant leader under siege. For historians, it underscores the volatile political climate of 21st century America, where the line between political rivalry and deadly violence has grown dangerously thin. Vladimir Putin. He has ruled Russia in various capacities, first as president starting in 1999, then prime minister, and back as president again, now well into 2025. His grip on power is global news, and so are the attempts on his life. Over the years, Putin has survived multiple assassination attempts. In May 2023, explosive drones targeted the Kremlin itself, shot down before hitting their mark. Around the same time, reports credited the Kremlin with repelling 6 separate plots, including sabotage and drone incidents. In March 2025, a limousine believed to be among Putin's official fleet caught fire in Moscow. Russian sources labeled it a failed assassination attempt. That same month, officials claimed a Ukrainian drone strike was narrowly intercepted before it could hit Putin's helicopter over the Kursk region. Conservative estimates put at least 6 known attempts on his life, but some reports claim he's survived as many as 43. Whether it's drones aimed at the Kremlin, an exploded car, or airborne threats to his helicopter, each event is cloaked in secrecy, denials, and political optics. Every foiled attempt tightens the security circle around Putin. Publicly, it reinforces an image of invincibility. Behind closed doors, it's a testament to resources deployed for his protection, and perhaps a signal to rivals that he's untouchable so far. In the world of global leadership, assassination attempts are rare, but for Vladimir Putin, they're a recurring shadow in his history. And as long as the spotlight remains, so too will the threats. Volodymyr Zelensky, often dubbed the wartime comedian turned commander, has served as president of Ukraine since May 2019, with his leadership centered in Kyiv. Born in 1978, Zelensky rose from acting to combating history's harshest moments. As Russia launched its full-scale invasion in February 2022, multiple lethal plots unfolded. In early 2022, groups of Chechen commandos and Wagner mercenaries infiltrated Kyiv with orders to eliminate him. But Ukrainian intelligence thwarted them, reportedly with the help of anti-war FSB insiders. In one incident, people were killed inside the presidential office during a dramatic barred door confrontation. Estimates vary. Zelensky himself admitted he lost track amid mounting threats, while official figures suggest more than a dozen plots have been attempted since too high-profile foiled plots took place recently. One in Kyiv last year, and another at Rzeszów Airport in Poland involving a drone and sniper plan. These repeated attempts have cast Zelensky as an emblem of unyielding resilience. His refusal to flee, even when evacuation was offered, became legendary. "I need ammo, not a ride," he declared, reinforcing his resolve. His survival became a rallying point for Ukrainian morale, projecting defiance in the face of aggression. Benito Mussolini ruled Italy with an iron grip from 1922 to 1943, leading the nation into fascism and forging dangerous alliances with Nazi Germany. But his reign was shadowed by a series of near-death moments. In April 1926, while leaving a speaking engagement in Rome, an Irish woman named Violet Gibson stepped forward and fired a pistol at him. The bullet grazed his nose before jamming. Just months later, in September, anarchist Gino Lucetti hurled a bomb at Mussolini's car in Porta Pia, wounding bystanders but leaving the dictator unharmed. In total, Mussolini is believed to have survived at least 4 major assassination attempts during the 1920s and 1930s, each born from deep political hatred and resistance to his authoritarian rule. These failed plots not only hardened his security measures, but also fueled his propaganda, portraying him as a man chosen by fate to lead Italy, at least until his violent downfall in 1945. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot more interesting videos on the channel. I'd greatly appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. Thank you very much.